All right, awesome. Thanks for the intro there, Ian. All right, so let's go ahead and dig in. So we're going to be putting these lenses into context with a brief technical description of the lenses, going to a little bit about each lens actually, and how they compare to specific progressive designs that are out there in the market, and just generally how they compare to other design philosophies. Go into a little bit about how you can sell these, present them, how you're going to put them in terms of a sales product. And then, of course, point you to some resources to access both technical and in terms of training and approach. So first up, kind of general information about really all the progressives and all the digital designs within PLN. They are all backside 100% freeform designs. Nothing here is molded, nothing here is conventional once you're doing a progressive. Really, the differences between them are in how sophisticated this software is and the individual feature sets of the different progressive types. And we're more focused on benefits and features set at a certain price point. We're not necessarily trying to build a brand identity and make a sale based on that. And we carry the Pure Progressive series exclusively. We're not focused on carrying Shamir, Zeiss, or Essler or anything else. We're entirely focused on the Pure series. And these are designed to work well for most people, most of the time, general purpose. Of course, we have some specific lifestyle lenses. We'll get into those a little bit. But you can kind of choose. Do you want to, especially with things like the 4K, do you want to do a lot of custom values? Do you want to play with the design, or do you want to depend on the defaults? But they are designed, and frankly, most people, 99% of the jobs coming through here are going to be using the default values. So briefly get into the four kind of core general purpose progressives. That's the basic, the advanced, which is kind of a series of lenses, the elite, and then of course the pure 4K design. One pretty common question we get is, how am I measuring these and marking them up? It's standard. They're all 4-drop progressives. So right above the datum, up 4 millimeters is where you're going to have your fitting height, and check your distance RX. So the pure basic, this is not a short fit, designed for 17 millimeters and up. If for whatever reason you've got a 16 or 15 and you start getting down in terms of the fitting height, you really should step up to something like the advanced or even the advanced short. Relatively soft distance paired with hard reading. So they're going to kind of tailor that corridor a little bit for distance differently than they do for reading. So it's not just necessarily a straight hard design or soft design. And you can compare that to just kind of your entry-level digital product from just about anyone. Synchrony, Shamir's Genesis, the Ovation DS. So nothing too sophisticated, but it'll definitely get the job done really well. And you have the Pure Advanced. It is got a series of designs within it. So you've got your balanced. The RE is reading enhanced. It's not a short. It's just enhanced to focus on the reading corridor at the cost of a little bit of distance and intermediate. The inverse there for the distance enhanced, you're going to focus on distance, and then just a straight short design where you're compressing the corridor to get it to fit. Overall, wider than the basic, and you can handle basic, you can handle a lower fitting height, 14, 15, 16. Even the balanced design is going to address that a lot smarter than the basic does. And if you've had a brand of progressives before, Essler doesn't do it quite so much, but Hoya in particular, and Zeiss does it as well, where they've got these different fitted designs. It can be a little bit easier for staff to get used to. And there's your comps there, Comfort Max, Amplitude, the upgraded Synchrony series and the GT2, stuff like that. The Elite is a pretty big step up, 3rd gen freeform. If you really want to play with those values, vertex, wrap, tilt, etc., you absolutely can on this design. This is when you start getting into fixed and variable designs. You'll have your 15, 17, and 19. Think of those generally as short, mid, and the 19 would be your long. Or you can just kind of order the variable. A lot softer than the advanced, but it doesn't get as cute as a lot of the designs, especially the designs that came out around the same time. Like Auto 2, I know you've gotten that plano with no sill that you sent through, and then you get this power, a fair amount of sill at a really odd axis, sometimes out of that. That's really not something that happens a whole lot with these progressive optics. They're really meant to be pretty stable. So think of the Auto 2, the Physio W3, whatever Esler wants to call it this week, Precision series as well. Then you have the 4K. This is the best progressive we offer, level 5 progressive. Pretty big upgrade over the 4K. There's also a lot of prices, or over the standard Elite. There's also a lot of price incentive to go with it as well. Really, what you're doing is taking the Elite and giving it a much more defined field. There's a lot more data points to calculate complex surfaces. So higher resolution 4K, that's what they went with there. And this is also available fixed and variable. The variable on it's a lot smarter than some of the other designs out there, based on your fitting height, your particular frame dimensions, and whether it's a high baroque or a myope, it's going to change the corridor. If you want to set your own, of course, think about it a lot like the Elite, where you've got your short, your mid, and your long. And if you've got a lot of high wrap sunglass stuff coming through, or you sold them one pair and you're not quite sure, will this work? I sold them a standard pair and a pair of sunglasses. This design will accommodate high reps extremely well. And then it's the progressive that people go with. If you're ordering a progressive from PLN, it is going to be the 4K. If you're only ordering one, that's the one people tend to go with. It's very popular. It's been a really nice transition, particularly Shamir and Esler, but generally a lot of transitions have been really smooth with the 4K. So think about the highest bill you're getting from your current lineup. If you're using branded progressive, X series, Intelligence, things like that, this is your comp. We'll kind of briefly get into these lifestyle lenses that are a little more pointed. They're less than 2% of total volume, all added together. So it's not going to affect most practices very much, but we do generate more questions than sales on it. So I definitely want to make sure I get into it briefly. So the BiFocus, it's nothing too special in terms of what you're used to. It's just like any other round seg. It's just ground digitally on the backside. So with those benefits of digital surfacing, you're not getting rid of the optical compromises that come with the round seg. Yes, it looks a lot better than a line bifocal, but you still have to deal with that image jump because it is a round seg. And when you're measuring it, like any round seg, you've got that kind of transitional area where you're hitting enough width to hit the reading. So you want to give it enough room. So you want to measure that a couple millimeters at least above your flat top 28s. Comparable to the Shamir Duo, doesn't work the same way, but fits the same kind of market segment. So if you've been fitting a lot of those, this would be your comp. PuRelax, low ad anti-fatigue lens. Nothing too crazy here. You've got that single patient that you want to give a little bit of a bump. This is ideal for that. You can order in a half and in a 75 ad. You get past that, you really need to be getting into a progressive anyway. This is the only kind of standard progressive that is a 2-drop, so be careful. If you're ordering quite a few of them, make sure you're measuring that RX in the right spot and fitting and accommodating it in the right spot. And of course, going to compete with similar lenses from other manufacturers, Eisen, Sync, stuff like that. And the Office, this is kind of similar to the Advance, where it's got a series of lenses within it. It's going to go out at the very top is going to be the difference in the design. It's how far away are you setting the optics for distance. You're going to get full reading at the bottom. You don't need to, in terms of ordering, change anything about the RX. Don't need to change anything about the seg or anything like that. Just standard RX entered, standard fitting height entered. Make sure you are verifying it at the reading, pretty much like any other Office lens. So the different designs you've got the balanced, the DE, and the RE. The balanced operates just like a workspace lens. I want to see the area in my cubicle or my work desk, my work area. This is the one you want to use. Doesn't quite get as close as like a computer design. The distance enhanced, that's your true Office lens. You can probably get up and walk around with this one pretty well. You certainly don't want to drive with it. But if you need to see across that boardroom table, if you're doing activities within a 10 by 10 room, this is perfectly fine. And it'll kind of spit that design out quite a ways. A lot of people like this just to use at work generally. And then you have your reading enhanced. It's going to behave exactly like any computer lens you've ordered before. It's really just meant to go out to that screen. And then of course, the up close reading. So how do I position these? How do I even present them to people? You know, a lot of members that come to us for PLN for the first time, they've been selling branded product the whole time. They're not quite sure, like, do I lead with brand? Are these supposed to be just used on a budget package? How should I sell these? Our most popular and what we really recommend is when you just take a multi-tiered offering. A lot of practices sell 2 or 3 common progressives or lens types. You find the comparable lens type, and then you just wholesale replace it with one of those pure designs. So, you know, good, better, best tier that we see all the time is basic, advanced series, and then the 4K as their high-end design. We do have quite a few practices who maybe they've got a lot of trust with their patient base, and they can just kind of offer the best each time. Maybe they run a bit more of a boutique setting, so they only really sell one progressive design. The 4K is what you want to do. That's one of the reasons why we sell so much of that design, is because it is just kind of bulletproof. And if you want the best that's out there, that's going to be the one you go with. But there are a lot of people who are maybe heavy VCP, especially if you're in like an opt-out state. You've got a lot of freedom in terms of what you can offer. But you know, maybe you need that out-of-pocket package in certain other situations. It works very well for that. You could bundle it together with a consistent material, poly or Trivex, something like that, add an anti-reflective. It's another really popular approach. But in general, when we set people up, we really don't recommend mentioning a whole lot of branding ever. You know, you're trying to cover yourself in terms of profit. You're selling benefits and feature sets, so you don't necessarily need to dwell as much on the branding. We have that stuff available, presentation cards, things like that. You're able to order and print that stuff if you need it. But the idea and the philosophy behind it is definitely building your own brand. So those resources in general, pretty much everything's going to be on the site. So in the members area, you're going to have access to this stuff. You just log in. You have technical documents. These are all going to be contained in the important documents section under PLN or lab. You have a lens design catalog where all the things that I've mentioned here technically are listed out. Images with like power and still maps are available there. It'll tell you insets, stuff like that's going to be charted out there. If for some reason you aren't quite sure where to categorize these in terms of billing, or maybe how to price them out, we do list comparable categories for VSP and IMED. So that'll kind of get you started, like, where do I put this design? You can kind of compare those lists and formularies. Then layout chart, you should be receiving a lot of newer members, and you can print it at any time and get it printed as well. Just a basic 4-drop chart. Most 4-drop charts will work, but we do have one kind of specified for the brand. And I believe Ian's going to make these links available in different documents and after this presentation as well. So if you don't want to go digging, we can supply all this to you directly. Then there's a lot of video training. Mostly the types of training that we're focused on in these videos here is how to present, how to price, how alternative sourcing works, things like that. But a lot of that section 3 optical stuff, you'll have to deal with my face and my hair, and my monotone voice. But we do lay out a lot of this stuff there. And generally, if you ever have a question on this stuff, it'll likely get pointed my way or to another subject matter expert. But just emailing support@tripivotal.com, it'll get sent off to the right person. And that's it. That's it for the presentation at this point.
Great. Thank you very much, Zeke. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to share my screen really quickly and just show you where Zeke was talking about in the members area before we get to the Q&A. So what we have is you should be able to see our members area now. As Zeke pointed out, so this is just the tripivotal.com/members-area/ you'll have to be logged in to access all of these resources. As he mentioned, one of the best places to go within our members area for a lot of technical information is going to be the important documents. And of course, today we've been talking about the PLN full service lab. I bet there are probably about 50% of people on this call having real aha moments right now, because we try to make all this stuff self-serve, but I'm not sure people know exactly where to look. A lot of this stuff goes out with your welcome packet whenever you open up a PLN account. We try to get as much of that stuff out to you as possible. But for example, lens information, when we talk about lens categorization and billing for comparison, we have a chart there. Zeke mentioned that. We also have, for doctors and opticians, in-house personnel, the technical lens information, the catalog available here. You would have received this in your welcome packet, but if for some reason you lose track of it, it's all available in here. A lot of our POP and information for patient facing as well is in here. And as Zeke mentioned, we also have all of that POP available for ordering for your practice. That's not a profit center for us at all. We don't mark it up at all. We just make it available so that you can order it directly from the printer and send it to your practice. That includes brochures. There are some desk mats that your opticians or your staff can use to sell across the table, talk about benefits, et cetera. We try to set you up for success every way we possibly can. So Zeke also mentioned here, he talked a little bit about the training library and highlighted some videos. And again, all of these links, whenever I upload the video to our support center, our knowledge base, which is support.tripivotal.com. I'll also email everyone as soon as we get all of this uploaded. It will include these links for every resource that Zeke mentioned. So you can just check that support article. If you're feeling a little bit panicky right now and we're going a little bit too fast, it'll all be available for you and you'll be emailed about it within the next few days. So he was specifically mentioning a few videos in the section 3. Again, you will need to be logged in to access any of this, or for your staff to access any of this, but we do have an abundance of free training available there. And we have received over the years some incredible compliments from the members who have taken time to go through this and have said they learn more from our free videos than they learn from $15,000 or $25,000 consulting groups and programs. So we highly encourage you and your staff to dig into this when you can, if you want to get the most out of PLN and your pivotal group membership overall. So with all of that being said, we're going to go ahead and open it up to Q&A. The way I'd like to do this is in Zoom, of course, there's a chat function. If you can just go ahead and put a Q just really easily in the chat box, you can kind of scroll down to the bottom there and click chat. Just enter Q, and I will go ahead and unmute you in order based on when I see those Qs pop up. And I will go ahead and let you unmute your microphone and just ask any questions you have related to today's material with Zeke. So far, no Qs in the chat box. So either you were really thorough, Zeke, or people are very intimidated.
Just bored everybody to tears.
Yeah, exactly. So if you would prefer not to come over microphone, you can just go ahead and put your question in the chat box. And of course, I will relay it to Zeke. But if we don't get anything here within the next few seconds, I am going to go ahead and conclude this webinar. We can call it a day. Oh, good. Okay, so we've got a couple coming in here. So Peggy Dreisen said, we catch ourselves fudging the seg height up. Do you have any tips for that, Zeke?
Yeah, so it depends a little bit on what you're ordering. If you're ordering variables, that's one thing to consider. If you're ordering like a fixed 17 every time, it might mean you just need to go with one of the other fixed designs. Especially if you're fudging that height up like that, then you might just go down in a fixed design. If you're not using if you're using the variable, you might just consider start using fixed at that point. But when you're doing that, you're just bringing that reading up faster. And you are sacrificing just a little bit of peripheral vision when you do that, because you're pushing that wider portion of the distance further up. So be careful with that.
Excellent. And Peggy, if you have any follow-ups there, please feel free to pop them in the chat box. Besides that, we have one other question right now, and anyone else who wants to ask questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. But for now, Monica asked, can you briefly go into warranty policy?
Yeah, so we went a couple different directions, especially during beta, things like that. Needed to try something that worked for everyone, that wasn't too onerous on people's day-to-day, and also was sustainable. You know, a lot of this is out of the fact that we're trying not to incur too much of a payroll cost, making sure that these little things are taken care of. So what we've landed on is, generally speaking, you know, as long as you're honest with your submissions, if it's a lab remake, shoot it through as a lab remake. If it's an account remake for whatever reason, maybe you had an edging issue, just a simple scratch warranty, for example, you know, pushing that stuff through accurately is the most important thing. And then you have a cap on your percentage allowable. So we've gone through the group, we've seen what we can maintain without having to bother with the price list. We've seen what people traditionally send overall. And so right now that's at 10%. So if you don't exceed that 10% mark in your monthly, you've really got nothing to worry about there. If you do, we're not going to go medieval immediately, but we want to find out why you're having so many, because the group overall has trended well below that 10% mark, and lab remake reasons are order of magnitude less than that, you know, so low single-digit percentages. So there shouldn't be a whole lot of reason to exceed it. If you are, there's probably something systemic, maybe about the way it's being ordered, maybe about the product type, or something we're just not seeing eye to eye on in terms of ordering and dispensing. So we want to rehab people before slapping them too hard with numbers. So we'll definitely work with people, but that's the general idea, is keep it under your percentage. Be honest and straightforward. We're not going to require you to send absolutely everything in. Every once in a while, there might be something, particularly coatings and optics complaints. We need to make sure that there's not batch issues. We need to make sure that we're staying on top of that stuff so we keep quality high. So every once in a while, they are going to request that we see something back, but there's not necessarily a blanket policy that we need to see lenses back each time, for example. So I hope I went into enough detail there.
Yeah, I'd say, Monica, if you have any follow-up questions to that and requesting specificity on any of that, please go ahead and let us know. We'll probably be wrapping up if we don't get any additional questions within the next 15 or 30 seconds. But Kristen Cox said, thank you all for the info. So
super welcome.
Goes to you, Zeke. And I would say, of course, as Zeke mentioned in the presentation, always feel free to email questions to support@tripivotal.com, whether they were related to today's material or if it's anything else having to do with PLN. We want to do everything we can to provide a stellar experience on the support side and set you all up, as I mentioned earlier, for success every way we can. Monica followed up with, great. And how do your AR coatings compare to other brands?
Awesome. So we've got a 3-tiered offering. You know, traditionally we had fewer options, but now we've been able to kind of spread that field out. So you've got 3 basic types. You have the basic, that is your get the job done AR, you know, like a B-level standard AR, depending on how you bill. That's a spin coat or factory coat, depends on the type of lens that you're ordering. And it does have a basic hydro and oleo coat on it, a 1-year one-time warranty. Decent AR, but it's meant to hit that price point. You have the classic, big upgrade there, dip coat, better hydro oleo, anti-static properties, and that's available in green as well. So the basic and the classic are both green ARs, and they both have the same warranty, 1-year one time. Then you take your step up to the agility. That's going to add the backside UV. It also ups your warranty to 2-year one time, and you also have much more choice in terms of the coloring. So you have green, you have blue, and you have blue block. A lot of people mix up the blue and the blue block. The blue is a lot like something like sapphire or a lot of the Zeiss coatings from the past, where they just have a blue reflectance, but they're not really blue blocking. Then there's the actual blue blocking anti-reflective. The blue and the blue blocking depends on the order volume during that cycle in the lab, but sometimes there might be an additional 1 to 3 days. Usually it's just a day or two to get that batch to fill up. So just expect that they may take another day or so to clear. But I think that's about it. In terms of comparison, think of the basic as your easy. The classic is kind of your mid-range, like Alizé, and then the highest end option compared to something like a Sapphire, Provencia, and Avancé. It's kind of your comparables.
Outstanding. Thanks again, Zeke. And one thing that I would mention there too that was unique when we transitioned over to PLN is the backside UV coating on our Agility AR as well. Something that members requested for a long time that now fortunately comes with all Agility coatings. So great. It looks like one quick follow-up from Monica here. And on the blue blocking option, is there any color to the lens and what is the amount of blue light blocking?
It's surprisingly neutral. I was kind of surprised when I saw it myself. It's almost like a slight darkening, and it will depend on the index that you're applying it on top of. You can have a little bit more yellow, a little bit more grayish look to it, but it's actually surprisingly neutral. In terms of the amount of blue light blocked, it's not massive compared to en masse. It's going to be comparable to things like Provencia, depending on what part of the spectrum you're looking at and the spectrum overall from 360 to 520 nanometers, you're going to get something like 10 to 15% blockage. It's not meant to be too terribly much compared to en masse. If you really are trying to maximally block blue light, other than going through like tinting options and things like that, you really want to choose the blue blocking materials if that's what you're trying to accomplish. That gets several times the amount of blue blocking.
Outstanding. And I think that does it for, Monica said thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you for good questions.
Yes, absolutely. And it's always a little bit weird when we get to the end and we start talking about questions and it's crickets. We just assume everyone's asleep by then. So if anyone has any follow-up questions from today's material or anything otherwise, anything we can do to help you understand the context of what we do at Pivotal Group and what we've made available to you at PLN, feel free, like I mentioned earlier, to always email support@trypivotal.com. We'd be more than happy to help you out however we can. Keep an eye out in case you want to recap any of this material or you want to share it with any of your staff members and other key personnel. I will make sure to have that uploaded to our support center at support.trypivotal.com as soon as possible. And I will email out to everyone whenever that's available, along with a timed table of contents so you can kind of easily skim through whatever material you were most interested in, or if you wanted to revisit one of Zeke's questions, et cetera, those will be clearly delineated with a time-stamped table of contents. So with all that being said, thank you all once again. Kept it pretty close to half an hour, which is pretty good, I think, for the amount of material we covered. Let you all get back to business. Have a great rest of your week ahead and weekend ahead, and we will be standing by to help you all however we can, and we'll be in touch soon. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.